Welcome to another episode of Until It's Done, a devoted podcast. I am your host, Dana Lynn Kay. So one of the nice things about this podcast is that you guys don't have to sit here and listen to a bunch of podcasts like ads or sponsors, because I am the sponsor and it's sponsored by Devotion Nutrition. So with that being said, I'm going to get right to the meat and potatoes because we have a lot to cover in this podcast. I have a dear friend of mine who actually drove down to do this because we go back and we have so much to talk about that rather than us even just having a phone call or chatting, I was like, okay, let's do a podcast and just put it all out there because this is stuff that so many women would benefit from hearing. So her name is Gennifer Strobo. I call her Jen. So I guess, is that fine?
I'll let most people do.
Okay. So Jen and I, now when we launched Devotion, in 2015, Devotion Nutrition was mainly, it was a lot of word of mouth, and we just had our social media, and it was super small, and we really hit the ground running because we hit all the bodybuilding shows. Because back then, it was really, I'd say, just Instagram and Facebook, and right? Because
Instagram was
very young. Yes. And so I was coming out of competing in figure, and I had a business partner at the time who was also a figure competitor. She was a pro, and that was the industry that I knew. And also those were the people that were really loud on Instagram. They were the people who were posting, and they were the ones who were showing off their bodies, and they were the ones who were sharing their journeys on competing. So we ended up, Devotion was at shows almost every week on the West Coast and the East Coast. And my old business partner was doing California shows, and then I was doing New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, everything like that. So along the way, I've met some really fun, incredible people because of those shows, because of being at those shows. And Jen is one of them. I got to meet you in person, and we got to talk at my booth and connect, and we connected instantly. We had so much in common. So tell me a little bit about your background. Just get everybody caught up so they get to know you before we.
Do we have time?
I know.
I'm just kidding.
I always say in a nutshell,
So in a nutshell, let's see. I'm 47 now. I have two daughters, 25 and 28. I never lifted weights or did anything until I was 31. And started competing the year after that, turned pro the year after that.
Oh my gosh, that's fast.
Prior to that, going way back, I'm a type 1 diabetic, which defines a lot of my life. I don't let it define me. It's just part of me.
Were you born with diabetes?
We found out about it when I was 7, 8 years old.
Oh, wow.
I had a lot of issues with low blood sugars all the time. I was really skinny, frail, sickly, all of that growing up. I was never the overweight diabetic, because you don't see that in children. Usually it's because they're not thriving. So,
right.
I broke every bone in my body, all those things. And we started to figure out something's going on.
Right. Wow.
So having said that, type 1 diabetic, eventually I started in architecture with my college degrees, and then I decided to go into nutrition. Been doing nutrition about 20 years, but then that moves me fast forward to the bodybuilding a few years later. Got into bodybuilding, got into competing, because as a mom, you kind of lose yourself a little bit, and you're always just soccer this. You're literally nonstop with children.
Yes.
And I was working at the same time, and single mom. After my kids were about 3 and 6, I was a single mom, and I just wanted a goal for myself. Who is Gennifer? What am I going to do?
Yep.
So a friend of mine asked me to work a bodybuilding show. I worked it, and I was like, I can probably do this. I went back to the gym and looked at the local trainer, and I was like, I want to compete in that show that I just helped him with next year.
And had you ever lifted weight? Were you into fitness at all?
No.
No, and you were 31? You were 31 at the time?
I turned 31 during this time.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so I had never done that. I was just that skinny fat girl.
Okay,
no muscle. Just, I thought I looked amazing.
Yeah.
And I say skinny fat. It was just because I had no muscle. I was still thin and frail. And
But your competition was
yeah. The
more
competition
fat
was-
than muscle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I said, but there's a show coming up in, it was like 8 to 12 weeks or something.
Okay.
And I want to do that show because it's like right around my birthday. And he looked at me like I was crazy.
Now, do you remember what year this was?
It was 2008.
Okay, so this is a while back, and when things were different than what even shows look like today. I mean, so
It was probably 2008, 2009.
and there was no bikini division.
There was no bikini. It was fitness and figure for women and bodybuilding.
And figure was still very new, correct? Because figure
had started maybe like 7 or 8 years before that. It started early 2000s.
Right. Okay. Yes.
Yeah. So I was going to go into figure. There was no way you needed me to do flips or anything on the stage. But that's what I had seen, and so that's what I wanted to do. And yeah, there weren't any of those other divisions. And I went and did that show, and I won.
Oh my gosh.
Let me preface that. There was one other competitor.
Oh my God.
And she had forgotten that she was doing a show.
I always wish
because she
I
had
was
not
part of a show
dieted
like
for the
that.
show.
I hated. I showed up to shows and there were so many women, and I was like, "Oh, come on!"
There was one other girl in my class, and then she was very, very heavy, but had made a huge transformation in her body. But she still had quite a ways to go in her journey. Proud of her for getting up there, but of course I won. And so then I kind of got the bug.
Sure.
I went back to that next
That's an
show.
instant boost of
Yeah,
confidence.
so you're
I got
heck
this.
yeah, look at me.
Yeah. How'd you place? First?
Yeah, and no one knows. That's the same with any show. No one knows in the gym. They're like, how'd you do? And you're like, oh, I won. Or they literally don't know what happened in a show. They just be like, congrats on your show. And you're like, okay, cool. You could have totally lost.
Yeah.
And so I went back to that show that I started with, and I won the overall that year. And then just kind of progressed through, turned pro very soon after, and was slowly growing some muscle. But figure was very different back then.
That's why I asked you the year, because
It was very
if you
different
look
than
back
it
at
is
what
now.
figure competitors, we actually had covered that on a podcast. When I think our first podcast, we spoke about Rachel McGlish, and we were like, okay, she was what bodybuilding looked like in the 80s. But then if you compared her figure to what bodybuilders look like now, or even, I don't even know if she wasn't even hard enough to look like a bikini competitor now, or had enough muscle.
Yeah, they had
really?
the muscle shape, but it wasn't that leanness and that quote hardness that they like to talk about. And then, it's just I can't even say, it's just a completely different look.
Right.
And if you look at my photos from Olympias and Arnold's and things, and then compare today, and that was just 4 years ago, 5 years ago, there's a completely different look.
There's a completely, right, yeah. That's why I had asked, because it's like, the muscle that they hold now today is like, oh my gosh, it's another level. I knew, we'll talk about this at on the other episode, but it's like, that's when I knew. I was like, okay, I need to tap out, because I can't even, I can't do that.
Yeah, it's unattainable for what I want.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And what you're willing to put in it. That's a whole nother, I think that really consumes the majority
And I was
of your time in life.
I was competing all over the world, raising my daughters and working more than full time, like 60 hours a week.
Oh my gosh.
So it was a lot.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, well, it takes a lot of dedication. I'm like, well, you just go to the gym and what you put in your mouth, it works. But
Yeah. Right.
But I was doing all of that, and I didn't have hours to spend in the gym. I never spent more than 45 minutes in the gym, and I would be out.
That's a misconception where people think you need to you live in the gym. People ask me, how many hours a day do you train? I'm like, hours a day? Like, sometimes I pop into my garage for a quick 20-minute pump and I'm done. Like, are you kidding me?
I did 15 minutes in the gym this morning at the hotel just to move my body, and I was like, all right, we're good. Yeah.
Right. No, that's a misconception. Wow. So that's a reason you and I think, hit it off, because we got each other, because we are both very, like the way you just described, where you're like, you work 60 hours, you're raising your kids, you're competing, you're whatever. Like, sometimes I get people who will DM me and they're like, I watch your stories and I'm like, how does this woman do it all? Like, she's going from her office and she pick up her kids and she's doing her fitness and she's running this and she's doing, and it's like, yeah. And like, I sometimes laugh and I'm like, I honestly don't know. Like, but it's like a certain person, it's a certain type of person, it's a certain personality, it's a certain discipline, a certain way that you live your life, organization, priorities, structure. And I thrive on structure.
Same.
And so you and I, like, whenever we would talk, like, we got each other because it's like, yeah, we get it because we're these women who like get a lot done, but it's because of how we do it.
Structured. I'm like a laptop with like 50 windows open. Like, I'm thinking about this blog that I'm writing, or I'm thinking about what I can do for my clients. I'm thinking about what I need to do with my kids, or what movie we're going to see this weekend, all these different things. And it's always just, you just schedule it.
You have your lists, right? I'm sure you do that.
I still do old school notebook paper because I like to see it. Like,
me too.
I scribble it out, or like I have a black Sharpie and I like to scribble it out.
I have check boxes and I make a check mark, like little box.
Okay, so I scratch it out. I like to see it.
Okay, I X the boxes. Yeah, I'm very, very structured. And in fact, when I had my twins, it was like, and I had Bodie and he was a toddler and then I had the twins. It's like, that's how, and I was competing and I was working and I was like doing my house, but I got it all done because it was like structure. I had schedules. I had my to-do lists every day. Like I knew and people would say like, how do you get it all done? It's like, it gets done because it's like it's like mapped out for you. And it's like, if you write it all out, what I need to do in a day, and you just stay focused and get your stuff done, and you have a schedule with it. Like I had the schedule with the twins, like their naps and all of our stuff and what time they're eating and it's all of a sudden you realize like it's actually easier to function on a schedule where sometimes people are like, oh, I can't, it's like too much.
Organization makes you able to get things done.
Yes.
I mean, it totally does, because that's the problem with a lot of people today is they're like, and then I got behind and I'm like, what were you doing? I was watching this TV show on Netflix, or I was scrolling through this.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, people are like, did you see this on TikTok or Instagram? I'm like, might have missed it because I was not scrolling. I was working.
Right. Exactly. So, okay. So
we're at the booths and we just chatted, and
yes.
That was when Devotion looked completely different.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Before our rebrand. Yeah. You're like OG. Like
I still send you photos of like, I'm like, look at this, like with the cursive writing.
Yep. And I'm sure like
the OG Flex flavor boxes.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Oh my gosh. And it's like, it's so funny because at the time, like I thought it was so beautiful and it was artsy and whatever, but like I wasn't thinking, I launched the brand from just a passion and I love my products and I wanted it to look pretty, but it wasn't like a marketing standpoint. I wasn't thinking like with a business head yet. It was more like I was doing this because I loved it and I loved the products and I loved the meaning behind it. And I wanted to help people and so I was like, oh, and I want the packaging to just look like pretty and I want people to love it. I want them to put it on their counter and think that the packaging is so pretty, but like I wasn't like, okay, Dana, who's this going to appeal to? Like,
is it recognizable?
Like, oh my God, all the fonts and the colors. And I mean, when you look back,
it was
like,
a lot.
It was busy, but it's like, I don't know. I wasn't coming into Devotion with a business head. It wasn't like I'm here to make money and we're gonna have crazy margins. No, I was like, I love this protein and I want everybody to love it too, and I want to sell it to people to help them. And so it was like the packaging just had to look pretty and like
it made your heart happy.
Right, exactly. But I think that is what grew the brand how it did, because people like, I was promoting it with my heart and like my excitement and all of that, rather than just like worrying about like what it looked like in dollars and sales and all of that. And but after a while I did admit, because it wasn't appealing to men, and Devotion's for men too. Devotion's for everybody. It's a whole it's a lifestyle.
Like we were just saying, all demographics. It's for everyone.
And
that's why
I love
I love what I do. And people are like, why don't you work in the hospitals? Why don't you do this with your nutrition and stuff? And I'm like, because I love what I do.
Yeah.
And it makes, at the end of the day, I can go to bed with like a good heart and a good head.
And you feel good. Like that's how I feel. And so often, like anytime that when Devotion went through some hard times during like COVID or any times with the pricing and all that, and it's like, I would sit there and be like, oh, like, are we gonna make it? And I wasn't thinking, are we gonna make it like money wise? I was like, I was worried about like, if we don't make it, how many people I would disappoint not having my product on the market. Like, what are they going to use? Because these people have been buying Devotion and like, it's part of their life now. Like, it's literally, like, my mom and I look at each other sometimes and we're like, if we didn't have Devotion, what the heck would we be eating? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I've yet to see anything else that like functions or tastes or anything like Devotion. So it like, I felt almost like a weight on me that I didn't want to disappoint people. Like it's a brand now that is a staple in a lot of people's homes. I mean, you and I at night, you tag me so often at night that you're making your fluff or you're making, you know, or like recipes that you like to create with devotion. And it's like it's so much fun for me to see how people have incorporated it into their lifestyle. And like, that's what's exciting to me is that like, it's because it's, you know, it's something that obviously like I would do no matter what. I have access to it because of my family, but like, I love it that I see other people like embracing this like concept that I had. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like working for like all these thousands of people now. So yeah. So
always a good feeling.
Genn got it. Yes. So now, okay, so I want to talk about what you do now. So you're retired from competing. You have been for like a little while now.
It's been, I feel like it's only been like 4 years, but it could almost be 5 years.
5 years. Okay.
I don't know if it's been that long.
Okay. Well,
4 to 5 years.
And then you work now with lifestyle, like people lifestyle. It's not even competitors. That's your passion.
No, actually, I mean, I have maybe like 2% competitors that come to me, but I focus all on lifelong sustainable health and fitness.
Okay.
So it's not like a fad program that you come to me and, you know, I do nutrition, but I teach you all about stress and sleep and all those different parameters, how to get your health, how to feel your best. And when you feel your best, your physique is going to look its best.
Exactly. So that's a topic that I actually wrote that I wanted to talk to you about. So we laid down the foundation that we both came from this like bodybuilding start, like this like background, and now I'm sure you've noticed it because the thing is like social media has also kind of caught up with the fact that like the bodybuilding mentality or the fitness mentality or the getting in shape mentality, it used to be thrown down our throats of like hustle hard, don't get enough, you know, wake up, I'll sleep when I'm dead, like that.
No days off.
No days off. Like, yeah, all that, like it was actually like, it was stressful to feel like you had to, like if you were resting, it like you weren't working and you were kind of slacking and somebody else was working harder and getting better. And you're, you know, it's like all of a sudden you've got this like mentality that you just have to like go and go and go. And what I love is social media, along with coaches like you, have finally said to people like, no, that is not the approach to long
I've been telling
lasting.
people for years, like the more you rest, the better. If you're trying to grow muscle fat, the better that grows, the better your adrenals function, the better your your metabolism and your hormonal processes function. And training for the Olympia and the Arnold, I never trained more than 4 days a week.
Yeah.
But people assume that I was in the gym 6 days a week.
Right, because on social media, you think that that's like the hardcore, like that's what you have to do to look like that or get like that. And I even had to retrain my brain to like, Dana, slow down. More is not better. Like that is not the way it works. I mean, I drove myself into the ground before I finally realized like, wow, like I need more rest and days off and refuels and all of those things.
Yeah. Well, when training competitors, I'd be like, okay, I want you to take 4 days of rest. They would totally freak out.
Yeah.
And you need to eat more. Or people would come to me from another coach and I'd be like, I don't want to step on their toes, but you haven't been resting. You're hardly eating any calories. Your body is not going to burn any more body fat, and you're going to keep working harder and harder and harder, and then you're going to end up sick. And then all these things. They would rest for a few days. The inflammation would come off. They would eat a few hundred more calories a day, and they'd be like, "Oh my gosh, I woke up a week later and I lost 4 pounds." I'm like,
yes,
all the water weight and all the bloat and your body was able to go, "Oh, okay, I can let go of."
Yep. This. So, admittingly, I just the other like. I don't know now. It's been a few days. I had taken off a time, like during the summer, I would like travel and I'd take off and then I'd get home and I'd hit it hard and then I would travel and take off and I was like doing this cycle. Then I stopped traveling, school started, and then I was like kind of hitting it hard and I kind of forgot to rest, where it was like I was just like making sure I did my cardio and I'm training and I'm going, and then all of a sudden school starts and then work is picking up. And so the other day, no, this is yesterday, okay? I show up to work and my mom said to me, because my mom came to the office to help us make 12-pack boxes because we were so overwhelmed. And she said, oh my God, your legs look like huge and your arms look huge. And she's like, you look really watery. And I am. And I was like, Mom, I'm so tired. And I was like, I think it's because I have not rested. Like I have been like doing my regimen, but forgetting to work in rest, like take the heck off. And I got on the scale when I got home because even Greg said to me like, yo, and he calls them my legs pegs. He's like, yo, your pegs look huge. I was 142. Now, a couple days ago, I was 134. And I was like, oh my God, like I'm holding so much inflammation, like so much bloat, so much water. Everything was swollen. My arms
your
are
body's
all
trying
thick.
to protect your joints. It's trying to protect you from what you're doing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and I was like, oh my God, my hips are sore. Everything is inflamed. And this morning I woke up and I'm like, I'm not doing cardio. Like, let's rest our body. Let's like Dana, like I actually have to actively rest. Like I have to work that into my schedule to not do it because really it's like, yeah, I want to do it. I feel like better.
It's just part of what you do.
It's part of what I do.
Yeah.
But then I realized like my body hasn't had a rest now since I got back from all the summer. And my body is screaming like, can you just rest and can you recover a little bit and sit down? And so this morning I woke up and I already had flushed out like
Probably
like
a
6
few
pounds
pounds,
of
yeah,
it already. And now I've like still like my legs are, but okay. In a couple, like probably by tomorrow or the next day of just chilling out, taking off, resting, not feeling like I need to go, my body will actually look better. And my mom is the first to go, she'll see me like in a couple days and she'll go, oh my God, you look shredded again. You look so lean. You look so whatever. And she'll like forget. And
You sound just like her.
right? And, no, but she'll say like, oh, and then half the time, like I'll call her and I'll complain. And then she's like, oh, give me a break. A couple days, you're going to flush out the water. You're going to look great again. Like, you know, she knows because it's like a cycle. Like I forget how sensitive our bodies are to pushing and going and overtraining.
Yeah, it's crazy. I have clients that have come to me and in the first week, they're like, oh my gosh, all the bloat went away. And you've got me resting 3 days a week now. And now I've been eating breakfast in the morning and doing these things. And I'm like, oh, really? Maybe I
Right?
do know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Because they freak out at first. They're like, I don't know. And I'm like, just trust the process.
I was just going to say, trust the process. Trust the process. Finally, even my mom right now, she's working with someone who comes to her house, and because she wouldn't listen to me. I'm like, Mom, you need to eat more food. I'm telling you, you wouldn't. And she's like from the mentality of like eating less and all that stuff. Yesterday, she comes to the office. She's like, feel my legs. They're hard as rocks. And they are.
Because your muscles are full with the food you've been eating?
Yes. And I'm like, and my mom is 70 and feels like she's a rock. And I'm like, Mom, like she thought like game was over. And I'm like, it's not. It's because you just weren't fueling correctly. And now oh my gosh, she feels amazing. Her energy's up and she can't believe how much food she's eating.
I talk about it every day. I'm like, oh, really? Crazy. Wow.
Crazy.
Oh, you mean you're sleeping at night and you have energy? I mean, just case in point, hurricane time, I'm driving down. There was so much going on at my house, tons of anxiety. I was trying to go to the gym, trying to do that because I knew I was going to be traveling and not really doing anything. I get to the hotel last night. I'm famished. I order like a bowl of food, but I actually ordered 2 of them, ate both of them, sat in my hotel bed and just worked on some spreadsheets and some blogs I'm writing and then some client information and was doing all of that. Just sat there. I got up this morning and I have like a little travel scale from whenever I was competing.
Yeah.
And I got on it and I was like, that's probably wrong. Let me go down. Let me find this fitness center. So I found that, got on that. It was the same thing. I lost 2 pounds.
Oh my gosh.
But I ate twice as much food last night.
Yeah.
And I sat in my car all day yesterday driving.
Yeah.
Because I rested my body.
Because you rested.
And that was only one day, 2
Yeah.
pounds. I'm like, people just don't get it. So.
No. And it's
And it's hard for those of us, like we talked about the structured organization. Like that's just part of our day that goes on our list every day.
Yes.
And it's just.
And part of my list was always like, coffee, cardio, kids, and it was just like, get through it. Like here we go. We're going to bang this whole thing out. And then it's like when sometimes I realize like, okay, let's leave out the cardio. Let's like get up and like move at a slower pace. And it's okay to like not be killing it every single day at a rapid pace because then I'd end up face first by Friday.
Then you're going to end up sick and out of work and out of taking care of the kids.
And burned out. Because last Friday night I was on the couch. I got home from work and I was like I felt like I was like sitting there staring at the wall, drooling on myself. Like I was just like, okay, I feel like scrambled eggs.
I think your brain was probably shutting down.
Fried. And I was like, I said that to Greg. I was like, Greg, my brain feels like scrambled eggs. Like maybe we should just watch some trashy show and I need to check out. Like I can't think about work anymore. I can't think about life. I can't, it's like where you just.
If our bodies were going to fall apart, if we didn't go to the gym every single day, or if we didn't do cardio every single day, no one would do this. No one would live a fit lifestyle.
Yeah.
I mean, there are people that live fit and don't do it like as crazy as we get.
Yeah.
That look amazing. They don't talk about it every day. They're not in a business that's related to it, but it's because they are balanced. And
yes.
I try to teach balance.
Yeah. No, balance is important. And I feel like, but it's like, the balance part, I guess balance for people like you and I who've really truly made it a lifestyle, the balance is us slowing down, but it's like we're still doing more than what the average person who really is just trying to even get to the gym, right. So it's like depends where your balance is, like on the spectrum. On the spectrum, right, exactly. So, whenever, so balance for us is taking just a couple days off where we're forcing ourselves to like rest, recover. But there are people where we're like, okay, now you need to get into the gym. You actually have to show up the 4 days or 5 days or whatever.
Like you need to at least show up.
You need to show up. You need to get the workout in. You need to do it. If you take 1
week off for a vacation, that's fine. As long as 90% of the other time you've been showing up.
Right. Exactly. So, yes. So I want to go back. So I want to talk about your diabetes, and you've had a few things in your life that you've battled. I want you to talk about.
Yeah. And that like kind of led me to doing nutrition and having such a passion for it. Mm-hmm. I worked and spoke to, being type 1 diabetic, I worked as a nutritionist and spoke to heart patients and diabetics in the hospitals. But it was so miserable because I was like, I had to go to their rooms in order for them to be released and discharged from the hospital. Yeah. They had to speak to a nutritionist. And they would literally turn the TV up while I was talking.
Oh my gosh.
They'd be like, well, the doctor said if I did this. And I'm like, okay, well, you just lost an eyeball and a foot, but you don't want to change anything. You want to keep shooting yourself up with insulin, or you want to stay on all these heart medications. And I teach a balanced lifestyle. I teach you how to include all the foods you love. You can still have pretzels and cookies and a burger and fries. You can still do those things, but it's also about all the other things that you put in your body. Yeah. And I teach you like portion size, portion control, just learning taking control of your life and not blaming someone else. Yeah. And it was so miserable that's when I went into like, let me just do it for those that want to come to me and that really want help. Is it always successful? There are always some people that reach out, but then they want to, I can give you all the tools and talk to you and help teach you and show you, but I can't hold your hand and make you do it.
The best clients.
But it's very fulfilling to be on.
Yes. I feel like the best clients, now I've never been a coach, but I've many friends in the industry who are coaches and work with people. And I've personally always been the client. Like I've worked with lots of different coaches along my, paths for a million years. And I feel like when you get a client who already in their head is like closed off to what you have to offer, or they think that they have it all figured out, it's like the best client is a type who comes and they like almost, they say like, I'm handing my trust and myself over to you. I'm open. Tell me what to do. And like a lot of times if a client trusts the process and they give it time to really let it work, a lot of times clients want to see results like overnight.
Well, that's the way the world is.
That's the way the world is. They want that instant, urgent, and that's the thing about fitness. Like it is so important to like just stay the course and stay focused because it's such a slow.
Yeah. And I have people come to me and they're like, well, I can't work out or whatever. I'm like, I'm a nutritionist. I'm teaching you the foundation where it all begins.
Yes, is nutrition.
And then I couple it with, do you need to do something at home? What do you have available to you, or a gym workout? I couple it with that, but so you missed the gym. What did you do with your nutrition? Because that is your foundation. That is what I do. People come to me and think that because I come from the bodybuilding industry that I'm going to be doing all of that. But I'm like, no, I create all these recipes to show you how you can still have all these foods that you love and the flavors that you love. And, you can still have these casseroles and this. It's just all about how you put it together and you combine it. And you can feed it to your family. You can do all these things. I just teach them all that balance. Yeah. So, like, as a quote, I guess you you're saying coach, like I'm a nutrition coach and I want you to learn that. But if you come to me saying, well, I can't do this, and they're like, well, I can't give that up. And I'm like, well, first of all, I'm not asking you to give that up, but you can, you choose not to.
Right.
And I use that. And as soon as I use that, the people be like, oh, they can't stand when I say that.
Yeah. It really, you have to be open to trying new things, right? And change and evolve. And it's like, if it was working for you, then you wouldn't be reaching out to a nutritionist. Oh my gosh, I say that all the time. I'm like, so what, all I'm asking is that you trust the process, at least so you're in it for 12 weeks with me, or if they wanted to be 6 months. But I'm like, trust the process for 12 weeks because what you've been doing wasn't working. That's what brought you to me. Right.
So stop telling me what worked for you because it wasn't.
Yeah.
And then they're like, I know. I'm like, okay, so what's one thing we can change this week? Let's focus on that.
Right.
And then let's stack some habits.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
You can't New Year's resolution your life because it's not going to stick.
No, exactly. Okay. And this is why I align
as a diabetic, that's what got me into doing it all.
Yeah. And I align with people who want to teach other people like the lifestyle. In fact, before I competed before kids, and then after I had my kids, after I had the twins, I had Bodie and then I had the twins, and then I decided to compete again. I did a show, and then we'll talk about this in the next one, but like I had my rebound, and I said, Dana, you are not allowed to do a show ever again until you truly learn to live the lifestyle. You cannot just do a show diet, which any freaking, no offense, but like, I feel like a monkey can do. It's like, it's something where it's like, yes, a coach can write you out a plan. You follow the plan, you do the whatever, blah, 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 you lose the weight, then you get on. It's, can you sustain this? Is this a lifestyle? Like, I feel like it's like, that is the hard part. The hard part wasn't me getting show ready. The hard part was after the show, knowing how to live.
So many people ask me all the time, they're like, well, so you went back to being normal after you competed. And I'm like, what do you mean? So this is my normal.
Yeah.
I hate that society thinks that normal is so different. Like normal is, belling up to McDonald's every single day.
Right.
Well, I could still have McDonald's if I want to for a meal, but I'm not going to have it every single day.
Is normal just what? Not caring, not going to the gym often,
that's my
going
thing,
out to
like,
happy hour Friday night.
What is your normal? Create a new normal for you. Because people are like, well, how do you do it? I see so many competitors, and I'm like, yeah, because they were doing it because now it's so prevalent. They're doing it for how many likes are you getting?
Yes.
How much,
or for that trophy,
how many people
or
are going to tell you you're amazing, or the placing on the stage, or for that one goal, but their coach didn't try to instill any type of habits in them. It was just like, do this, go hard for 12 weeks, and this is what you'll get.
Yeah. So what I did was, I think I took off 2 years after. So I competed after the twins. Then I realized, Dana, you really don't have your stuff together. Because I rebounded immediately. Not like a rebound, but it was just where it was like, I was like lost again. I was like, this really isn't my lifestyle, is it? Like I know how to do, but I haven't put it together where it's just what I do. So then I took 2 years off, and I was like, I am just going to make a healthy lifestyle where I can maintain a healthy weight, where I go to the gym and work out, where I eat my food, where I'm not binging, where all these different like things that I had on my list.
If you can do that, then you can do anything.
Right. So then I remember I did a photo shoot to celebrate my lifestyle. A lot of fit competitors will do photo shoots when they're in the best shape, when they're like in peak week or whatever, that, when it's like, oh, they look their best. And then you see their pictures and you're like, what the heck? Like, that's not what you look like. And it's like, no, I look like that for 5 minutes, and then I competed on stage, but I have these pictures. No, I was like, I'm doing a photo shoot to celebrate that that this is what I truly look like.
And
this
embrace.
is and embraced the lifestyle, and that this is it. Now when I do my photo shoots, it's close to basically what I really walk around. I want it to be my real attainable
and that's how my
life.
competing was for me, because as a diabetic and cancer survivor and all these things, like I already knew, and doing nutrition, like I already knew how to eat. I would half the time have to eat a little more into a show to get my muscles to be fuller as a diabetic. to pop and do all of those things. And people be like, well, I'm on season, I'm off season. I'm like, you're off season? You are way off
Way
season.
off season. Right?
But my difference was maybe 5 pounds.
Right.
And so it was very easy because everybody's like, well, competing was so hard, it's so difficult. And I had to cut off all my life. And I'm like, I remember whenever you're like a couple weeks out, like shopping for prom dress for my kids, eating chicken and green beans out of my purse.
Yeah.
Because it was just kind of like what I did. I didn't care less. So we're at the mall and then we sit down and they want Chick-fil-A. Okay, so you can have that. My kids eat great, but they also eat all the other stuff they want. But I taught them how to cook. I taught them all those things. And they'd be sitting there eating, Chick-fil-A, but I knew what to order from Chick-fil-A if I needed to eat right there, and I didn't have things for me. And it didn't even bother me. It wasn't like, oh, I really want that. Because if I did, I would have it.
Right.
But it's just because I knew I felt better. And
so here's something. So you have 2 girls, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. And so, I have twin girls, and a big topic has been now, they're 11. And so we are right in that age where now I've always been speaking to my kids about, like, they've grown up like literally seeing me working out, and they're part of devotion and they understand healthy eating. But is there a certain way that you spoke to them or showed them, or, what did you do raising girls to make sure that they had a healthy, outlook on like nutrition and that they understood?
Well, and I wouldn't say that either one of them follow in my footsteps. Okay. However, they are both a healthy weight. Okay. They both, my oldest daughter, she's like, oh, I'm going on a bike ride tonight, or I went for a run, she'll do that. My youngest daughter competed twice, hated it, was miserable, hated that because the person that I wasn't going to coach her, I was like, that's not happening.
Yeah.
So I let someone do that, which was wrong because she got the wrong feedback, she got that like deprivation situation.
That's what I'd be petrified of for my girls. Like,
it's like we'll go to dinner and they'll just eat a little bit, or they'll order an appetizer for their meal because they're just eating portion control, portion sizes.
So it was never stressed in your house. Like,
I never I made grilled chicken. Say we were eating grilled chicken or something, and there was a vegetable. They always loved, they would eat their vegetables, and then maybe there was some fruit, and then maybe mac and cheese was one of the sides, but they would just have a little portion of that, but they'd have grilled chicken and a vegetable, and it was a very balanced meal for them.
So did you ever say things were not allowed in your house? Were you like, okay, we're not doing sugar cereal,
there were always different things.
So they didn't feel like they couldn't have things, but you were teaching them to make
They were never made
better
to feel
choices.
like they couldn't have things.
Okay.
And I could pour them something and they'd be like, Mom, I don't need that much. I'm full already. I'm like, oh, okay.
Okay, yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, because they learned their own cues because I just never pushed it on them. If you're pushing it on them, they're going to go the other
That's
direction.
what I've been doing.
I would get in their cars when they were teenagers and I'd be like, what are all these fast food bags, going on in here? But they also they'd come home and they'd be like, Mom, you know what we would love you to make? And I'm like, what? I think you've seen my like pot roast thing online. It's literally just some beef and vegetables, nothing. Yeah. But they'd be like, we would love grilled sweet potato wedges and chicken.
Yeah.
And can you roast broccoli? I'm like,
yeah, I feel like it's so like if you introduce it as they're they're growing
people
up.
Always say my kids won't eat that. I'm like, no, it's just because you give them whatever they want. And there are parents that are raising vegan kids and the kids don't know any different.
Right.
It's because if you just go, oh, my kid complained one time. I will say my youngest daughter went almost 2 days without eating one time because all she was screaming about was a chicken nugget. And we didn't have them at the house. And I think she was like 3 or 4 years old. And I called my mom crying. Yeah. And I was like, I'm just going to go to McDonald's. And she's like, she'll eat. She's not going to starve. Yeah. And I was like, okay. So like I was just dying, but she got a meal and it was literally like 36 hours that she went without eating. Yeah. And finally she just ate the food and like she never said anything. Yeah. But it wasn't that I wasn't giving that to them, if all their friends were over and they wanted me to grill hot dogs or whatever, that'd be great. But there's a fruit salad, there's different things, for them to all have. And it was just balance.
I was so fired up on my TikTok once because I was making devotion creamies for my family. Yeah. And there were, of course, like, it's like, now this post got like I don't know, there was over 1 million views on it. So you can imagine like the hundreds and hundreds of comments, and people, and most of everybody was like, oh my God, this is awesome. I wish my mom made me these growing up. And then there's the ones, who are going to say you're creating eating disorders for your kids, or all kinds of like nasty comments. And I'm like, I didn't say they couldn't have the like regular ice cream. In fact, like, but this is, I offer them healthier options. And this is, no, I'm not going to go out and buy pints of Ben and Jerry's for my house. Like, I'm not doing that. Not because I just don't find it necessary. I just, but if they are out with their friends, or if we go out on a Friday and they want to get an ice cream after dinner,
then it's totally fine.
Yeah, I don't say no, but am I going, now I do bring snacks in the house from Costco. They can have stuff in their bags. They can have, it's like, and it's portion control things where they're like baggied, and I'll say like, yeah, have one portion of whatever.
That's how I taught my kids. So that's a little trick that I taught my kids. Sorry. So, if you look on the back of Oreo cookies, it says like two cookies is a serving.
Yeah.
So I would have these baskets in the pantry for after school. And so they would have options. They could pick the baggie that has 2 cookies in it, or they could pick the apple, or a serving of popcorn that was already like that I had already pre-popped.
Right.
And they would realize that they got like 3 cups of popcorn.
Yeah.
Or they get the 2 little cookies,
yeah.
or, and I would have it all portioned, and I would teach them portion sizes because they would help me prep food when I was prepping for shows.
Right.
And 9 times out of 10, they would choose like the bigger, more voluminous option, like the popcorn or something.
Like more. It's like,
because they're like, snack. I see that I can get more.
Yeah.
But to this day, like I've never seen them just like binge out on some Oreo cookies.
Right.
They'll just eat a couple and they're like, oh, I'm good.
Yeah.
Because that's how they could still have it. It's not that we took it away from them.
Right.
What I teach my clients, 90-10. Like 90% of these, 10%, like whatever you want. Just have it. Plus, we led an active life. We would be in the backyard playing croquet of all goofy things, to celebrate birthdays or things. We would go roller skating, or we would go do like the ropes courses, and we would do active stuff, canoeing,
That's amazing.
kayaking.
Yeah, don't make it just about, let's go out for a meal. It's always about a meal.
Yeah, and then you're creating memories. You're like, do you remember that time we were on the ropes course and like you nearly killed yourself? And we still laugh about all these different little things, but we created memories instead of like, let's just go binge out and, just because. But that's how like a lot of cultures celebrate. It's just around food, which is totally fine.
Yeah. But it's
here and there, but not every week. Like, there's another birthday. There's another.
Oh, that's what it seems like. Every time I turn around, like I feel like there'll just be like some quiet times, like right now, and then all of a sudden, like Halloween hits, and then it's like Halloween, and then we've got Thanksgiving, and then we've got Christmas, and then there's office parties, and then and then you're rolling into New Year's, and then by the time New Year's comes, it's like it's been like weeks of just nonstop
gluttony,
yes, and temptation, and then you're just like, and then I'll just start over, and
most of that stuff doesn't even bother me, but it's because like I know not like there's a tips and tricks like relocate, stop standing by the snack table,
right,
go and connect.
My big thing is I eat a fluff before I go to a party, or if I
go starving.
Never.
Eat your food.
I always
eat a meal, especially if it's just hors d'oeuvres. And make it a point, like go in there with like what your goal is. Make it a point to connect with 5 people in the room. Ask them a question, like do something like that, and you get into conversations and you realize it's over, it's done. And I just
and you weren't just like hanging out over the chips and dip, and
like I can't wait for this party because we're gonna have this and this and this and this. And I'm like, okay,
this
is America. You can have that every day.
You can have it every. That's one trick that I got through when I was trying to lose weight, and I felt deprived, especially, I think this was even before devotion. This was when I was like after the twins and I was trying to just get the weight off. I kept saying to myself, like, Dana, you can eat it. Nobody has like a gun to your head saying you can't eat this stuff. Do you really want it? Like, do you really... And like I would,
or do you think someone's taking it from you?
Or do you think, or do you think it's not going to be there later? Or do you think you have, like, when people like act like they line up at these, like when a bakery opens with those like cupcake shops and like all this stuff, they're like lined up. Remember like that sprinkles, and I'd be like,
they're going to be open for months.
They're going to be and like, do you think you're missing out, or like you have to grab this cupcake? Like, it's going to be there. Like, you can bake it anytime. Like, stay on course, accomplish your goal, like feel good. And there's so many times that then I would make the decision to like not eat that thing that I just knew wasn't part of like my goal. And then I would like wake up the next morning and I'd be like, oh yes, I'm so glad I didn't eat that. It was like a victory, because then there's the times that I do choose to eat it. And then I wake up and I'm like, oh man, I didn't need all that. I ate so
Like you
much
didn't, you ate too much.
Too much.
So like some people will come to me and they're like, well, I really wanted this cookie, and instead I had a rice cake and I had this with peanut butter and whatever. And I'm like, okay. So I'm tallying it in my head, and they're like, but then I still wanted that cookie. And then I went and I had, I ate, XYZ that I found in the pantry, but I still didn't have that cookie. And I'm like, well, you've now eaten like 700 calories. If you'd have just told yourself you can have that one cookie,
exactly,
then you just move on. And you learn that instead of feeling like so deprived, because once you finally had all that stuff that didn't satisfy that one little thing, you went and you binged.
Yep.
And that is the problem.
That's a problem, which we'll get into more of that on our next episode, because that is where I think depriving yourself in diets, which often happens when you
learn
compete
to
and all that.
include it, and you'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly. Work it in.
Fine. The first bite tastes the same as the last bite.
Yeah.
So you don't need to eat 50 bites.
Yeah.
You just have a bite and enjoy it.
Exactly. Which is a learned thing. It's like a muscle.
It is.
You have to, yes, which that's something that I've had, because I'm a volume eater and I have had binge eating issues and emotional eating issues and all of those things. So it's really been a muscle, and I have to have tools in my tool to learn to not go down that path. I mean, it really is, it's a discipline. It's a strength that you have to teach yourself and build. I mean, I don't know. That's what it's been for me. It really.
I loved that full feeling. A lot of people don't like that.
Yeah.
I want to feel as full as possible, and I'm a voluminous eater.
Same. Okay.
Like I love.
Which is why
I want to eat a ton of
volume.
Food.
Yep.
And I haven't been able to do that for the last few years, and it has been like a learned thing. So now sometimes it doesn't take as much to make me as full.
Yeah.
But I still love to eat like volumes of food. I can eat.
That's how I
And
am.
I can put a man under the table at a buffet.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, yeah. On that note, it's so buffets. Anybody? Yes, that's a weakness of mine. Well, this has been amazing. We're going to do another episode with you, and I'm excited to talk about that one, because it's probably a lot of these topics are going to roll into that one, and we'll get into more detail. But thank you so much for coming up or coming down. You're coming. Or over. Down and over.
It was like down and over.
Yeah.
Tampa area. So, but yeah, no, I appreciate you asking
and tell people where they can find you.
You can find me. Best way to find me is on Instagram.
Okay.
I am Genny D, Gennid.
Perfect.
On Instagram, but it's Gennifer with a G. As soon as you start typing Gennifer Strobo, it will pop up. Or you can email me. That's usually the best and fastest way to get a hold of me.
Okay.
info@genniferstrobo.com.
Easy peasy. All right. And you guys can always ask me too, because I'll send you straight to Genn. All right. Well, thank you for joining in. This has been great. And we'll see you next time on Until It's Done, a devoted podcast.